At around 1 p.m., Arthur Achleitner, a former student, walked through the doors of his old school, armed with dangerous weapons. Minutes later, gunshots shattered the silence. His first victim was a 15-year-old student, and the other student victims were aged 14 to 17, 6 girls, 3 boys, and 1 teacher. Students screamed and sprinted. Teachers shouted, "Get inside!" Classrooms became barricades. Some kids whispered into phones under their desks, "Mom, something's happening at school." Others sat frozen. When it was over, 10 people lay dead. 11 more were wounded. Austria, a country where school shootings seemed like an American nightmare, something that belonged to headlines across the ocean, was in shock. This wasn't supposed to happen here, but it had.
Police swarmed Dreierschützengasse within minutes. Reports were frantic and contradictory.
Shooter inside, multiple injured, possible hostages.
But when officers stormed the building, they didn't find a firefight. They didn't find a standoff.
They found a 21-year-old man lying dead in a cubicle toilet.
It was as if Arthur had already decided his role was over the moment the last shot was fired. In a press briefing later that day, Austrian police confirmed the numbers: 10 killed, 11 wounded. Among them, teachers, staff, and students. Reporters fired questions. Was he a current student? Was this terrorism? Why Gratz? Why this school? But the answer was chillingly simple. This wasn't a political act. This wasn't international terrorism. This was a young man, a former student of the very school he attacked. Neighbors who knew Arthur were stunned. He was quiet, polite, always kept to himself. But detectives soon uncovered clues that painted a far darker picture. Police was one of the starting data, so she was giving often light from what you can imagine. And to understand why he turned a school into a massacre, we have to step back into his life.
I'm surprised how this story did not attract attention in the Western media. This is one of the most terrifying cases I have met.
So who was Arthur Acklitner? He was born in Gratz in 2004. His father was Armenian, mostly absent. His mother raised Arthur and his siblings largely on her own. Arthur wasn't violent. He wasn't a troublemaker, but he was quiet, withdrawn. Classmates remembered him as the kid who sat at the back of the room, not bullied badly, but not embraced either, just invisible. From an early age, Arthur disappeared into his own world. Video games, screens, online chats. Teachers noticed his shyness. Neighbors noticed how rarely he left home. Isolation became normal, and slowly, invisibility turned into bitterness. When investigators began combing through Arthur's online presence, they found very little. No flashy Instagram, no TikTok, hardly any photos at all. But beneath the silence, fragments appeared. Arthur played Valorant. He streamed occasionally, under obscure usernames. He competed in small online tournaments. I tried to search on his streaming channel but couldn't find anything related. But I found his Valorant profile. Goes by the name Zenny. It seems just like any other profile. Gaming wasn't unusual. Millions of kids spent hours online. But for Arthur, it was more than fun. It was an escape. Offline, he was invisible. Online, he could be whoever he wanted. And in that digital mask, he drifted further from reality. Police later confirmed he had researched weapons, explosives, and past shootings. Inside his apartment, they found something chilling, a pipe bomb, thankfully defused. And next to it, a suicide note. The police didn't publish what was written on it, and a video message addressed only to his mother. This wasn't random. This was premeditated. Arthur hadn't just planned a massacre. He had written his own final act.
Arthur Achleitner didn't smuggle weapons. He didn't buy them on the black market. He got them, legally, step by step, just like anyone else could. In March 2025, Arthur sat down for a psychological evaluation, the kind of test Austria requires before granting a firearm license. And he passed. No red flags, no warnings, just a piece of paper saying, "Fit to own a gun." That document unlocked the next door. A month later, April 2025, Achleitner walked into a gun shop in Graz. He picked out a double-barreled shotgun, paid for it, and took it home just like that. Then, just weeks later, in May 2025, he walked into another store. This time, he bought a Glock 19 pistol. Again, fully legal. By now, Arthur wasn't just a young man with dark thoughts. He was a young man with weapons, and he didn't stop there. Starting in March, Arthur joined a shooting club. He trained. He fired rounds. About 5 times in total. He practiced until he felt ready and prepared.
Arthur left his apartment with his weapon. Neighbors saw him but didn't think twice. By 1 p.m., he was inside Dreierschützengasse. The first shots echoed down the hallway. The first gunshots were fired at 9:57 in a 5th grade classroom on the 2nd floor. Afterwards, the perpetrator returned to the 3rd floor, where he opened fire inside a 7th grade classroom, after shooting several times at the lock to open. The shooting lasted 7 minutes, during which around 40 gunshots were fired in total. Emergency services arrived within 6 minutes. Students screamed. A teacher shouted for everyone to lock the doors. One victim was reportedly his upstairs neighbor, a chilling detail that blurred the line between random violence and personal vendetta. In just minutes, 10 were dead, 11 more were injured, and then it was over.
Police and investigators confirmed that Arthur Achleitner entered a restroom on the 3rd floor and died with his Glock pistol. He fired a final shot at himself, ending the massacre within minutes of it starting.
But the echoes of that day would haunt Graz forever. For Austrians, the shooting was unthinkable. Mass shootings belonged to America. Austria had strict gun laws. It was safe, peaceful. At least that's what people believed. But in June 2025, that illusion shattered. Parents asked how a young man could walk into a school with a weapon. Online, rumors spread, Reddit threads, deleted profiles, gaming accounts linked to Arthur. Here is a deleted YouTube account related to him when he was a kid. User on Reddit goes by the name Slymooks said,
I knew Arthur when I was a kid. I played catch and Xbox with him. Very sad that this happened.
Another user on Reddit goes by the name DeepLion959.
Another shooter with an absent father, and one of the victims was his neighbor. Now his poor mother has to suffer, alone.
Some posts were conspiracy theories, others were grief-stricken messages from classmates, but the reality was simple. 10 lives were gone, 11 forever scarred, and a community was left to wonder, could this have been stopped? Arthur Achleitner will not be remembered for who he was, not for being quiet or shy or lonely. He will be remembered for what he did, for the 10 lives he ended, and the many more he shattered. But the hardest question lingers. How many more Arthurs are out there, silent, invisible, planning, and will we recognize them before it's too late? Go ahead and subscribe, and like the video so more people can see it. Thank you.